The signpost at the boundary of the Navajo Nation and the Cibola National Forest in New Mexico had been riddled with buckshot so many times that the silhouette of the bear was more metal lace than warning. Mark adjusted the rear view mirror of his beat up Ford Ranger. In the flat sodium vapor glare of the gas station 12 miles back, he had looked normal enough. Out here, deep on the dirt logging roads where the cell service died, like a stepped-on beetle, the red dash lights made him look hollowed out. Mark wasn't a believer. He was a hydrologist. He measured flow rates, snowpack runoff, and the toxic leaching from old uranium tailings. But his younger brother, Leo, had gone missing 3 weeks ago, somewhere between Gallup and the reservation border, and the local cops were treating it with the lazy indifference reserved for transients and runaways. Leo wasn't either. He was a botanist who had been chasing rumors of a rare high-altitude fern, and he had been calling Mark right before his phone went dead, babbling about things following him through the peon pines that didn't cast shadows. Mark killed the engine. The silence of the New Mexico backcountry didn't feel empty. It felt dense, like he had driven into deep water. He stepped out, his boots crunching on gravel. The air smelled of coal dust, juniper, and something sharp and iron metallic, like old blood on a shovel. He clicked on his high-powered flashlight, sweeping the beam across the tree line. The twisted branches of the dwarf pines looked like arthritic hands clawing at the stars. "Leo," he called out. His voice sounded thin, immediately swallowed by the vastness of the plateau. He didn't expect an answer, but he needed to move. He checked his GPS unit. The satellite ping was dead, standard for the canyons, so he relied on the topographic map clipped to his clipboard and the coordinates from Leo's last saved waypoint, Ca Fiada de los Hornos, the Oven Canyon, a place the old-timers avoided because the rock formations trapped the heat, and, according to local legend, things that wore human skin. Mark scoffed out loud, hating the way his own breath fogged the cold air. Skinwalkers, witchcraft, Navajo taboo. He was a man of science. People didn't transform into coyotes or owls. People just got lost, fell down shafts, or ran afoul of meth cooks in the hills. He started walking, his boots crunching rhythmically. 10 minutes in, the flashlight beam caught something white, dangling from a low, hanging juniper branch. Mark froze. He stepped closer, his heart thumping against his ribs like a trapped bird. It was a strip of plaid flannel, torn, frayed at the edges. Leo's favorite shirt. "Leo," Mark shouted, panic sharpening his tone. He pushed past the scrub oak, shining his light ahead. The beam cut through the dark and illuminated a depression in the earth, an old mining prospect, maybe 12 feet deep. At the bottom, something was huddled against the red rock wall. "Leo, thank God." Mark started sliding down the loose shale bank, pebbles raining down ahead of him. The figure at the bottom didn't move. It was slumped awkwardly, limbs bent at wrong angles. When Mark reached the bottom, he dropped to his knees in the dirt, raising the flashlight. It wasn't Leo. It was a woman. She was wearing a tattered denim jacket, her face caked in dry mud. Her eyes were wide, milky, white with terror, staring up at the night sky. She looked like she had been dead for days, yet her skin was glistening, slick with a thick, viscous fluid that smelled faintly of rancid tallow. Before Mark could scream, the woman's head snapped toward him with a sickening crack. Her jaw dropped open, farther than human anatomy allowed, and from her throat came a sound that made Mark's bowels turn to water. It wasn't a gasp or a moan. It was the high-pitched, mocking giggle of a 7-year-old girl, layered over the wet, rattling growl of a dying wolf. Mark scrambled backward, clawing at the shale, his fingers tearing on the sharp rocks. He scrambled up the embankment, slipping twice, sobbing for breath. When he crested the ledge, he swung his flashlight back down into the pit. It was empty. The woman was gone. The bottom of the pit was just bare, undisturbed dirt. Mark didn't care about science anymore. He didn't care about logic. He bolted through the brush, branches whipping across his face, tearing his jacket, drawing blood he couldn't feel. His only goal was the red glow of his Ford Ranger, parked a half-mile back down the trail. As he ran, the woods came alive. It wasn't the sound of wind in the pines. It was the sound of feet, bare feet slapping hard against the dirt, keeping pace with him just beyond the reach of his flashlight beam. Thud, 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 thud. And then a voice called out from the dark to his left. It was Leo's voice, clear as a bell, breathless and pleading. "Mark, help me, man. I'm stuck in the briars." "Hurry," Mark stopped dead in his tracks, chest heaving, tears freezing on his cheeks. He stared into the blackness where the voice had come from. The voice came again, closer this time, right behind a thicket of scrub oak. "Why'd you leave me out here, Mark? It hurts so bad." A shadow detached itself from the trees. It was tall, too tall, standing nearly 7 feet, its limbs unnaturally elongated. It wore the tattered remnants of Leo's green parka, but the shoulders were too broad, the arms hanging down past its knees. In the split second, the moonlight hit its face. Mark didn't see his brother. He saw a human face stretched tight over an animal's skull, the eyes glowing with a dull, amber fire, chewing on something wet. Mark didn't answer. He turned and sprinted harder than he ever had in his life. He hit the clearing, threw himself into the Ford, locked the doors with a frantic punch of the button, and jammed the key into the ignition. The engine sputtered once, twice. Outside, something heavy slammed against the truck bed with a metallic bang. The vehicle rocked. Mark screamed, slamming his foot on the gas. The Ranger roared to life, tires spinning viciously in the dirt, throwing gravel against the pine trunks as it shot backward, turning in a violent arc that nearly flipped it into a ditch. He didn't look in the rearview mirror. He just drove, smashing through brush, tearing up the logging road, until he hit the paved highway 20 minutes later, his headlights cutting wildly through the empty New Mexico night. 2 weeks later, the Cibola County Sheriff's Department closed the files on both Leo and Mark. They found Mark's truck abandoned 5 miles inside the reservation boundary, the engine still warm, the driver's side door wide open. The keys were in the ignition. The headlights were still on, illuminating a stretch of empty dirt road where nothing moved except the wind. They never found the bodies, though local search and rescue teams reported something strange when they swept the area. For miles around the abandoned truck, the only tracks in the dust were human boots walking away into the hills. And beside them, the heavy, padded prints of an animal that didn't belong in these mountains, walking on its hind legs.